All righty, it is a little past 1 o'clock. Welcome, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started. On behalf of Howard Brown Health and Rush Generations, we want to welcome you to our Shaman Senior Voices event titled Honoring the Voices of LGBTQ plus Older Adults. I'm Jasmine Chandy. I'm a program coordinator for Shaman Senior Voices and Rush Generations. I also have with me here Kelly Rice. Kelly, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. We're so excited to have you join us today. My name is Kelly Rice, use she and her pronouns, and I am the program manager for intensive community care services at Howard Brown.
Great, thank you. So thank you all so much again for joining today. Thank you for joining, whether you've joined in on Zoom, you're joining in over the phone, or also on YouTube. We're really excited to have kind of 3 different ways for you to meet us today. I'm going to give you just a little overview of what today is going to look like, and then we'll go ahead and introduce our panelists and then get right into the program. So we're going to start off, first of all, just giving you a glimpse of what Shaman Senior Voices is and why we have this program together today. After that, we're going to have all the panelists introduce themselves so we can get to know who we'll be hearing from today. After that, we'll have the panel discussion. So we have a number of questions we're going to hear from our panelists about their perspectives and their stories. After that, we'll have the opportunity for you to ask questions or share your reflections and really interact with our panelists. And then at the end of the event, we're going to share an opportunity for you to share your perspectives through the use of video. So throughout this program, we're not going to wait until the end for the Q&A to ask questions. Throughout the program, whether you're on Zoom or on YouTube, you can type in questions or comments. On Zoom, you'll see the chat box at the bottom. If you're on YouTube, you'll see a live chat button, so you can put in any questions or comments throughout the program. If you've joined in over the phone, we will have the opportunity for you to unmute yourself at the end of the program and ask your question or comments. So we look forward to this. Really, the whole goal is to have a conversation and to interact and learn with one another. All right, so let's get started. I want to first share what is Shaman Senior Voices, and then we'll kind of get into the goal of today. So Shaman Senior Voices is a program that's all aimed at learning what matters most to you as you age. So aging and being an older adult, it's about a third of our life, but we don't spend a lot of time talking about aging and that experience. So we spend a lot of time talking about the other two sections of our life. We talk a lot about being a kid. We talk a lot about the stresses of being an adult. But one of the most common themes that we see when we talk about aging is people say, no one prepared me for this, or no one talks about this. And so we want to change that. We want to learn from you about what your experience is like, and also learning what matters to you as you age. And then we, with the Shaman Senior Voices program, will learn from everything that we're hearing and then use that information in a few different ways. First, we use it to educate our healthcare students, our healthcare providers, all the future leaders of our hospitals, so that we're creating not only an age-friendly health system, but an age-friendly community. Beyond that, we also use these perspectives and what we learn to develop programs. So if it's really clear, we're starting to get some themes and we're learning, you know what, this is really needed, we'll find a way to create a program and really reach that need. And then beyond that, we also use what we've learned to have conversations like this and to have events like this out in the community so we can continue to learn from one another. So that's a little bit about Shaman Senior Voices. It's named after Rabbi Schaalman, who was an incredible person. He was a faith leader, and he was all about building bridges and learning from diverse perspectives and making connections. And so we follow that legacy in what we're doing, which leads to what we're doing today. So by learning what matters to older adults and having conversations on aging, we want to learn from as diverse an audience as possible. So we want to learn from all different educational backgrounds, socioeconomic status, races, orientations. We don't spend enough time learning from people who are different from us. So that leads to today. We're honoring Pride Month. And so today's event is all about honoring the voices of LGBTQ+. So we have 4 wonderful panelists for today. And so we're going to go ahead and see their faces now. And I'm going to go ahead and right now welcome you to introduce yourself. And after you introduce yourself, we'll start getting into the panel. So how about we go David, Stephanie, Elliot, and then Mark.
Okay. Hello, my name is David. I'm born and raised in Chicago. I live here in Wrigleyville near Clark and Belmont. I am a long-term survivor of HIV infection since 1985. And I'm here, I'm very happy to be here, and I look forward in conversation with everyone here today.
Thank you, David.
Hello, everyone. My name is Elliot Morris. My pronouns is he, him, his. I'm the community health worker for Howard Brown Health. I'm glad to be here. I'm also a long-term survivor of HIV. I'm also a founding member of the BChan group, which is the Black Chest Aware Network. And I'm glad to be here.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Clark, formerly known as Stephen P. Clark. I bill myself as a Renaissance woman, activist, corporate executive, and sometimes storyteller. I knew I was different from age 3. I remained in the closet for 68 years. I came out the day after my wife of 44 years death, and I haven't stopped running since. I completed my gender affirming journey on June 26th, 2016.
Hi, everybody. My name is Mark. I am 52. I am also a long-term survivor of HIV. I was 19 when I found out. And I did not think I would make it to this age back then. I lived for the moment, and when I thought I would pass by 28, and that never happened. And so I just kept on plugging. But I'm very glad to be here. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you all. That's a great introduction. We're going to start off with the first question, and then I ask our panelists, so David, Stephanie, Elliot, and Mark, to just jump in and feel free to answer it however it feels best for you. So first question we have is, how has the LGBTQ plus community changed from childhood to now?
Well, let me start because I'm the least knowledgeable. Since I was in the closet for 68 years, I'm only 7 or 8 years old. So I don't get a chance to be old. Most of my early life was spent, especially in Seattle. I was an insurance executive, and my job was to go into the market and talk to the people with AIDS and explain the facts of life. If you don't know you have AIDS, leave this room and go buy insurance. Don't lie on the application. We will issue you a policy. Never stop paying your premiums because we'll cancel you and you'll never get coverage again. And now I'm sitting on the other side of the fence. I don't have AIDS, but I'm still there to help people.
Well, that's a huge question, at least for me. I came out I was 19, so that was like 1977. And I remember going to one of the Pride parades back then, which was down Clark Street. And there were some convertibles and some drag queens. And now look at the Pride parade, postponed, right? But it's like 1 million people. And I mean, so in 77, I don't know, for like 20 years, there really were no elected LGBT politicians or officials. 1981, we had the CDC reported 10 instances of a rare cancer in San Francisco. And now we have where HIV for many people, it can be treated with one pill. And we even have drug regimens where it can be pre-prophylaxis. So we've made huge bounds, I will say. Not all of this, though, was not without a struggle and a real fight. So A lot of those guys aren't here anymore. Sorry.
Well,
And, you know, they aren't here anymore. But, you know, it's just changed. I never thought that we would have gay people in the military or gay marriage. You know, in like the 70s and 80s, people had lovers. And, but, you know, it's amazing. You know, it's unbelievable sometimes. It's just unbelievable.
well, I guess looking at it in a diverse, and I guess being, I'm thinking about my childhood and being a Black man living on the south side of Chicago, being raised on the south side of Chicago, there were certain things that we just did not do. And as a child, I remember G.I. Joe. I remember having to do certain things that today I look at kids that are able to do whatever feels good for them. When back when I was a child, there were things that if it felt good to jump rope, that was a total no. Today, people are letting their children and allowing their children to be in their own identity. That's a far cry from where I grew up. As David was saying also, there were times when as a child or younger, that my identity was uncovered. As far as being in a relationship, you had a friend. There was not even there wasn't even a label lover or boyfriend. You just had a friend because you didn't want to put that kind of identification out. Today, you know, especially looking at our up and coming generations, you know, they are in their identities, and that's good because myself and I know some other people, you know, we were held back from being who we really were. So yeah, there's a far cry different from being a child to now. And then far as the parades and stuff, yeah, I remember the old parades, but that's a whole nother story.
I think for me, one of the biggest changes is that if, like, I came out at 16, and I was growing up in Dallas. That was unheard of. I actually came out to spite my mother, but that's a whole other story. But if you wanted to be openly gay, you could. You lived and worked and went to the bars that were in the gay neighborhood. And the only social outlet was the gay bar. You didn't go outside of that. There was, you know, let's be honest, there was bathhouses and bookstores and parks. Those were the other outlets. So we were very marginalized, and we were forced into, I felt forced into a very seedy environment. As we've come out, like David was saying, like, who knew that we would have gay marriage? I know that people worked hard for it, but it was always one of those things like, that's gonna be that's down the road. And actually, I think we were heading towards it. People like Harvey Milk in San Francisco, who were our first politicians, and they were breaking down boundaries and fighting, the Phyllis Schlafly and the religious right. But we were making inroads until HIV and AIDS shut that down, and then we became victims of God's punishment, for our sins. And we were all, it's like overnight we were forced back into a closet. And so I think, and now, we have several neighborhoods, and people, you can go anywhere in the city and there are gay and lesbian people living, and nobody really bothers us. I will say that I think we need to progress in being more inclusive, working on our inclusivity towards people of color. I think that's our next frontier, but we'll talk about that later.
Great point. And so each of you spoke to a positive growth. Or everything kind of getting a little bit better from childhood to now. Are there any changes that were not good from childhood to now, or anything that was more negative?
Well, I think we're on the threshold, at least for my community, of really being beat back again, especially by the Southern politicians who don't think they think that if I go into a bathroom, I'm going to look under the stall to see who's next to me. I find very few young people that do that. But they're after us. I mean, we are the new target. And part of it is because we're different. And I think that's why I do so many of these things to prove that, yeah, yes, I'm old and gay and trans, but I'm just a human being. And if I can use my life stories to help one child, take that step. It's like my wife, when she was dying of cancer and she was bald, she would not put a hat on because she said, if I can get one woman to get a mammogram, I've succeeded. And then she died.
One thing, well, that I'm not very proud of, or that I think our community kind of lacked, and I'll probably talk a lot about HIV, just so you know, is there's a lot of, in the whole LGBT community, there's a lot of stigma and discrimination against people who identify as HIV positive. Here's a story. It's a long time ago, but I was working for this guy. He was a caterer near Halstead and Belmont. And so he passed away from what they called at that time ARC, AIDS-related complex, because I think the medical community was still looking for a name to call it. And so he passed away, and he had some very wealthy clients. Well, he did. And I remember I went to this man's apartment and I had to drop something off, and Kevin had already passed away. And he told me that, well, I just donated $5,000 to the Lyric Opera because I'm not going to give anything to people who die of that filthy disease. I'll never forget that. I'll never forget that. You know, I mean, gee, what makes someone say like something like that? I mean, you know, I mean, it's horrible, but, and I still kind of think there's some elements of that attitude that are prevalent within all our communities. So that's something I don't think anyone should be proud of.
Thank you for sharing that. Mark, I saw that you unmuted yourself. Did you want to share something or no?
I will. I was waiting for Elliot.
Go ahead, Mark.
I live next to a train track.
Go ahead, Mark.
I just, I think when I hear about that there's like 2 lesbian bars left in the country,
Yeah.
where women can have a safe space to go and be with other women, that's disheartening. When women are no longer feel welcome at a pride parade because drunk men are groping them because they think, oh, I'm gay, and so I can just reach out and grab your breasts. It's all good fun. When there's bars that suddenly change the format of the music, and that is meant to exclude people from coming to their establishment. These are issues like we think of us as an inclusive and equal in equality, and yet within our own community we have segregated ourselves into these factions. and we don't have a discussion. And so our young people are still growing up with this, you know, where do I fit in? And if we're excluding the agencies that attend to these homeless youth, LGBTQ youth, who are still being kicked out of their parents' houses, and still being turned into sex workers, then we're not quite there yet. And it may look nice from the outside,
Yeah.
but we still have a lot of work to do on the inside, I feel.
I think our society is great at dividing, therefore they don't have to attack the whole problem. Yeah, you're okay, but you?
Yeah.
And I don't think it's just in the gay community. I mean, I think it's prevailing through the United States, but we tend to get the back end backlash of that separation issue, I believe.
Yeah.
They've all made good points. I'm not going to beat the horse.
Why not?
Oh, come on.
Because I mean, what Mark was actually touching on was actually just what I was going to talk about too. I mean, the lack of opportunity for people to really be in with themselves or be together with themselves. As it once was when I was growing up and when I was younger, going to bars. I was listening, we were talking about how the music and how there's not many bars for lesbian bars or even just bars in general. And then I know that the pandemic changed a lot of things, but even before the pandemic, there's just been such a lack of places for people to go. And I remember in my 20s, there was even though we might, for myself, again, being on the South Side, and there was places here on the South Side, but there's places on the North Side. And I mean, we had places where everybody gathered together and we listened to the music. And as I heard someone else said, I think it was Stephanie said before, or maybe it was Mark, about the type of music, you know, we listen to music that we all enjoy, you know, and it was diversified where we're gonna play this music to keep a certain group of people out. And that's starting to happen. Even like I said, pre-pandemic, that was starting to happen where they were doing things to kind of keep other people out. And that's, again, Stephanie was saying, that's actually separating and segregating our own little group of people. And we're trying to get together, and you can't keep separating and trying to put people together at the same time. So.
Really great points. Thank you all. This leads into our next topic, which is what issues in the LGBTQ plus community are you passionate about speaking on?
I'll jump in on that one. I think addressing the very high incidence of alcohol and drug addiction that is still within the gay community, and helping to make that bridge because I've been sober almost 3 years now, and you know, sobriety is something that I've struggled with over 20 years. So it's not something like, you know, it's not a one and done. It's a constant maintenance. But now that I'm aging, it's to be able to reach that hand back to a young person and say, you're better than this. You do not have to do this, and let me show you how and try to pull them forward. Crystal meth has done as much decimation in the gay male community as HIV was doing in the late 80s, early 90s. It's something that we need to, it's something that needs to be openly addressed and talked about, I think.
Yeah, in my position, I'm a community health worker. I work with seniors, and one of the things that I really enjoy is being able to provide a service for anyone, but especially a senior that they may not be aware of, or a service that will help them with their every financial needs or their essential needs, their daily needs. But one of my passions is actually being able to help seniors in their affirmation of identity with their self. A lot of seniors, especially seniors who may be living in senior buildings or living in closed quarters, they're not able to be, they're not able to identify or able to be their identical, their affirming self. And it actually stifles them. And being someone who's in my senior years, who's fully okay with myself, who is identifying with myself, I would not want anyone else to have to get into their senior years and have to still live in a closet. I wouldn't want anyone to still be in their senior years and still live under hatred or live under their self-hate, or as Mark was saying a moment ago, live in alcoholism or drug addiction because they can't really fully identify with their self, because they're either living in a situation where they can't come out, or they might be living with family where if they come out, or living around people where if they come out, even as a senior, they'll be ostracized or put out, or so it's a point of giving people that's an affirmation in that space to be able to be okay with yourself. And especially, like I said, if we got to the age or got to the place where we are right now, our self-identification should be so clear, and our self-identification should be love and be able to be who we naturally are. So yeah, that is one of my passions.
I think what interests me now, and that I'm working on, is access to healthcare. We can't age well if we don't have equitable access to healthcare. And we see it in our city. We see it in our country. You have to look at the COVID-19 statistics, and so many indigent and people and Black and brown people have died from this. And and I think part of it is we do live in a very ageist society. And how would you obtain a COVID vaccine? First of all, was to, I guess, get on your laptop and try and sign up for CVS or Walgreens. And lo and behold, we have seniors and their stories saying, I have to have my grandson help me. I have to have my nephew help me. I don't know. I think that is outrageous. And we need more resources to address what Mark was talking about, drug and alcohol addiction. And, we need our community to be much more aware of it, I believe, and to talk frankly about it. And I think it's, what's going to happen with as we age and they talk of dementia and stuff, and where are people going to go who come down with dementia or other, debilitating diseases? We need to get ready for it now.
Yeah, I kind of work in that same realm. I put a lot of my emphasis into access to healthcare and housing from the LGBT side. One life example is I tore up my knee, and so I needed to get into the hospital. And all hospitals are not created equal. There are certain Christian institutions that don't treat us nicely. So I was referred to a hospital in Boys Town, unnamed, and I was scared because here I'm going into a hospital. I'm packing my pink nightie, which is a relatively new thing for me. And finally, I go to admissions and I say, hey, look, I'm probably not like your normal patient. And I'm just fearful that I'm either going to get a hostile roommate, they're going to put me with a man,
Yeah.
or a nurse is just gonna, take off on me. And this particular institution said, as a matter of course, for the LGBT community, we try to provide them a semi-private room without a roommate. So the first challenge was taken away, and I will respect those people forever because I've used their hospital 3 times in 6 years. But you still got the problem of the nursing staff. And one day, a gal came in and she said, I said, I had to be transported to get to the bathroom every time, at night and all that kind of crap. And I said, if you got me a bedpan, then you guys wouldn't have to do that stuff at night and keep the staff free. And she said, oh, and she went running out the door and came back with a male bedpan. Closed the door, came to the foot of the bed and said, will this work? And I said, yes, but there's a learning experience here. When you're dealing with a trans person, you don't know what you got till you look under the hood. And make sure your whole staff knows that. If you're uncertain, should have been that a male bedpan or a female bedpan, first check the chart, see what it says. And then respect us for who we are, not how we were born. So my life is a learning lesson for everybody. I think people get tired of me talking, but you invited me back, so I'm sorry.
Well, I think I personally can say I never get tired of listening to you, Stephanie, and just appreciate everything you all have shared thus far. And, I think everything you all have talked about is kind of, you've all shared how much as different communities we have moved forward, over the last several decades, but where there are still a lot of challenges, I think for us individually, as a community, and also kind of socially as well. But kind of talking more on like that individual level, what advice would you give to younger generations of the LGBTQ community? What are the things that you feel like they should know, or advice that you would give? And Stephanie?
I got one. The light at the end of the tunnel doesn't have to be a train. It can be God shining her light on you and welcoming you into her family. Just keep your head down, keep going, look for friends and succeed, and then help somebody behind you.
I guess I would say it's okay to ask for help. It's not a sign of weakness. It's actually a sign of strength. And to accept that help. Yeah, I think that's.
Well, in this particular question, I kind of asked this question across the board, but my answer would be to accept and realize our history. There's a vast history of LGBTQ who have went through a lot of different processes to get where we are today. Looking at our panel right now, we have lived through several situations, whether it was HIV, whether it was stigma, whether it was just living through the life to get to where we are today, where we're able to be self-identified, where we're able to be standing in our own truth. That wasn't the case years ago. So realize that there's a history and appreciate it. And realize, and as Mark just said a moment ago, ask for help. A lot of us, not us on the panel, but just people in general, a lot of us didn't get the help because we didn't ask for it. Didn't get the help because we didn't ask for it, because either we felt we were going to be self-denied, which a lot of times might have been because of our identity. They might have been, if we asked for help, they would say no. But there was always that person that says yes. And we never know that person that says yes until we ask. So yeah, I would say just be able to be willing to ask, because there is a history that we need to be appreciable about.
Yeah, I think ideally, I'd like to see the younger generation become somewhat politically aware. You know, it doesn't have to be, 24 hours a day. Vote and practice safe or safer sex. Because, being HIV positive, it's it's a bitch.
To piggyback on what David just said, too, not to jump right in. Yeah, again, speaking strictly for myself, there was years ago when and I think that's just growing up. We have that undeniable Teflon way of growing, of feeling that we are, but realize that a lot of us did not make it to be able to give this conversation out today. So,
Right.
Living a life where you're taking care of yourself. There wasn't a thing of PrEP. There wasn't a thing of any type of safer sex methods. And when I was a teenager, but today there are so many different ways that you don't have to follow this road. You don't have to go down this road. We all have the life we have to grow, but take the information that you're getting from people who have lived it. We don't want you to have to go through all of the situation that we went through.
No, Elliot, I think that leads really nicely into the next question we wanted to kind of get into a little bit, which is, what do you wish non-LGBTQ plus individuals understood, whether about your just kind of lived experience in general, or, Stephanie, I know you spoke a little bit, and David, to like healthcare scenarios. So whether it's more in that arena or just in life in general, what are some things that you wish folks understood?
Well, I'll take part of that. I'm just a human being, and I have many faults. Some of the faults I'm proud of, but that's okay. But we're unknown. At least my community is unknown, and that unknown creates a fear in itself. And so all I can say is, especially for the medical community specifically, we now have medical records. Most people have medical records that are pretty robust. In my case, my particular hospital called me 17 different things. Some of them are nice, but they know my sex at birth, and they know my desired sex, and they know the last time I had sex, and and they know my preferred pronouns, and preferred pronouns are the only vehicle. I can be Stephanie or I can be Stephen, but you're not sure, and it's spelled, one's with an F and one with a PH. But when I say, and my pronouns are she, her, hers, at least the listener knows which direction I'm going. May not know where I came from, but the pronouns are probably the most important thing. Try to use them. Most of the institute, Howard Brown and many of the institutes I'm involved with, when we start a meeting, we state what our pronouns are. That helps. It just brings it together. And some people don't want to do it, and fine. But don't fear screwing up. But don't do it maliciously. So whether it's a bridge player or a fireman or your hospital admitting nurse, just treat us like we'd like to be treated. And we've given you enough signals.
Yeah, going on what Stephanie just said, I totally agree on everything, but especially the pronouns. At this point in time in our everything, Stephanie. At this point in time, pronouns are very key because they give the person an opportunity for you to respect them for who they are. It's not for me to assume anymore. It is not for me to take that assumption. So letting someone their pronouns, or if someone gives you a pronoun and you want to try, you don't change someone else's pronoun. You know, I'm grateful today for working at Howard Brown, just being being in the place today where I understand that if someone tells me they are them and theirs, to make my best effort to use them. And if I don't beat yourself up for messing up and not saying it correctly. Just keep going and just acknowledge it and keep, and keep going. But what I would like for a non-LGBTQ individual to really know is that we're people. You know, at the end of the day, whether I identify as a same gender loving Black man, what I do in the privacy of my home really is only the business of the person that I'm in the home with. I'm outside of my home, I'm a human being. Treat me as such, and that's all we need. But when I'm looking at, like I said, going back again to people who live in nursing homes and living in senior buildings, a lot of them are not being treated fairly. And like I said, if someone's identity is their LGBTQ, respect them. Respect them for the space they're in. There is not a reason why I should have such a diverse set because I may not live under what you under your principles, under what you do. I don't live under that. So now I'm going to treat you differently. Anyone, but especially as we're getting older, I just want people to really realize the people are people. As Stephanie just said, at the end of the day, if nothing else, that this current pandemic and climate has given me a strong lesson is that we all are acceptable. We've just went through something. We still going through something that didn't hit a particular group of people. It didn't hit a particular age of people. It hit everybody. So as hitting everybody, we all need to just live as an individual. We all need to respect everybody because nobody's infallible.
Yeah, we're just, I think, well, we're like everyone has said, we're people. We have feelings. Respect those feelings. I respect their feelings. Don't believe everything on television. There's a phrase that sort of came out of this COVID-19, I think, maybe before, but we're all into this together. That needs to be our phrase for everything moving forward. Life, we're all in this together, and I don't know how, but people have to realize that because it would create a more harmonious world. It would be very difficult to achieve that, but do what you can.
No, thank you all for that. And I know just one of the things I really love, I think just growing up, I was around a lot of older adults most of my life growing up. I grew up in my grandfather's VFW and listening to folks' stories and experiences. And that's one of the things that I really value with the work I'm able to do now is being able to connect with so many people and be able to listen. And so that's just something I picked up with what all of you said, and just something I would just really reinforce too, is just taking the time to get to know folks, because we're not just our age or our race or ethnicity, our socioeconomic background, like all of those things create the filters that we use as we engage with folks, and would just love to see us all provide space to allow us to share all those things and to be all of who we are. So yeah, I definitely thank you all for sharing that. And then kind of a follow-up question, but a little bit more specific, talking more about whether it's healthcare providers, social service providers, community partners, what do you feel like it's important for providers to know about being an older adult that also identifies as LGBTQ? I know we've talked a little bit about pronouns, a little bit about just kind of cultural competency in general, but what are some things that you feel like folks really need to get to provide competent care?
All the lights went up. Go ahead, Stephanie.
No, I don't know whether there's an inherent bias, but I don't think it's LGBT related. I think it's senior related. This ageism is
Yeah.
getting horrible. And we just warehouse people. And if you treat your paying patient that way, how can you ever learn to build respect across the border for when you need it? You know, but they just put people in wheelchairs and stick them against the wall and
Yeah.
put something in their mouth and put them on the, I mean, there's a high-rise place down on Grand. And people are after church or after dinner, they're just stacked up inside. There's 4 elevators, I think, to service the whole community in this high rise. And they can be there for an hour after the event just to get back to their room. And they're warehoused. Somebody could probably die in a wheelchair and they wouldn't even know it. Take them back to the room, I guess. So if they aren't caring for just the older ones, what difference does it make? I mean, I think we're more lively than the other seniors. I think we're younger lively. You guys, unfortunately, AIDS had cut your life expectancy probably down to 50, right? If that, were you from AIDS?
Oh.
Well,
I push back a little bit at using AIDS to describe HIV,
okay.
because it goes from HIV into AIDS and then it can go back into
Okay.
HIV.
I don't, I'm truly, I'm not I don't even know how to spell it. So,
But I think for me, it's like what I would want someone to know is that I have survived HIV, and I am now, like, I was diagnosed with stage 3 anal cancer in January and went through that treatment process, you know, chemo and radiation therapy for 6 weeks. And then the recovery but I'm cancer free now. And so, you know, I was diabetic before that happened and I lost weight. Now I'm not diabetic. So it's like, I'm experiencing life on life's terms, medical wise, and I need a doctor to not look at the chart and say, oh, HIV. You know, I had a doctor one time because I was on disability in 2004, and I went back to work and I got insurance and I went to the new HMO doctor, and I said, well, I think I was 34 at the time. I said, I'm a 34-year-old gay man. And he put his pen down and he just sat there, and I said, and I'm HIV positive. And he goes, of course you are. And I went, you know what? I don't think this is going to work. And I stood up and I left because I was taught a long time ago, I don't have to take that crap. Like, push back against medical care. Make them do their job. It's like, you know, I had Dr. Ron Sable told me in the very beginning, ask questions, don't just take a pill, ask them what it does. And if they get mad at you, find another doctor. There's a lot of good ones out there.
when go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Steph.
When I came to town, I've only been in town since 2016. I had to get a new PCP because I was coming out from the suburbs. And so where do you look for a gay doctor? Obviously, Halstead Street. And I found one, and we went in, and he treated me just respectfully all along. And about the 3rd visit, because he was going through all kinds of stuff, just getting baseline, and he said, Stephanie, you're the most well-adjusted trans female I have ever met. Now, I can see a compliment coming, so I put my shoulders back and my tits out, and I said, why is that, doctor? He says, most trans women are dead before they're 50. And now I'm 78. I'm on the right side of the curve. But you got good doctors and you got less than good doctors. Just go for the good ones. but it may take work.
The points actually, like, again, not gonna be the dead horse, but I just love the points that they just made. But for the doctors that we're talking about, it seems like people basically right now have had good doctors. They've had some bad experiences with doctors. Me, myself, I've had the same doctor for 30 some years. I count myself fortunate, I also count myself blessed that shortly after my diagnosis, the doctor that I had, which was a primary care doctor, who could not understand how to deal with, at that time, a young Black man who was HIV, who had other conditions, referred me to an infectious disease doctor who specialized in this care. And their care for me has been great over the last 30 years. And one of the things that kept me at this place is that I ask questions, and that if he was on this line, he would probably agree with me, and we would get to, again, arguing over so many things that we've argued over the last 30 years, because he cares, but also because he knows that I'm going to ask questions. And if something doesn't really fit me, I'm going to ask why. But that is not always the case. And a lot of seniors, a lot of older people, a lot of providers push pills. A lot of seniors, as Stephanie was saying earlier, especially, again, I'm not jumping in, just going into the senior buildings, but a lot of people in senior buildings, they give people medication to quiet them down instead of seeking their care, fixing, helping whatever that medical ailment is, instead of, I give you something to keep you numb. I give you something to keep that naturally just shut you up. That needs to change. That actually needs to change. And in our community, we need providers who respect us for our identity. Again, like I said, Stephanie made a very good point. There is, if I walk in the door and I'm a trans woman, don't, respect me when I walk in the door. It's not about you trying to change or trying to just keep changing, if any place I should feel comfortable, it should be with my provider. Mm-hmm. That's the place I should feel most comfortable. That's the place I should feel most that I'm being heard, because this is my life, and our life matters. Our life matters still. Yeah, today it still matters. Because I, celebrate you, Stephanie, for being 78. I got some time to get there, but I still want to be celebrated when I get there.
I'll be here.
Okay. I still want to celebrate when I get there. Yeah, good question.
Thank you all so much. And each of you have touched on, I appreciated each of you saying something along the lines of push back or be involved in your care. And that's so important, right? Being able to share what matters to us in these healthcare appointments, but in all that we do. And remembering that you are the center of your healthcare team. All of you have elaborated on that so well. So I just wanted to point that out for everyone listening too, that going into your doctor's appointments is one of the many ways that you can articulate what matters to you and really think about that before even going in. Starting off the appointment with, I want to make sure to talk about these things, or this is what concerns me the most. And just remembering that you are the center of the care for a reason. And so we have a couple questions coming in already. I'm also going to give the opportunity again for those of you who are joining to unmute yourself and ask a question as well. And for those of you who've joined in on YouTube, you can type in your question there and I'll moderate that over. So first and foremost, I want to share a comment that was said. It says, "Thank you, Stephanie, David, Elliot, and Mark. I have been profoundly moved by your powerful testimonies and perspectives. I identify as a 31-year-old gay cisgender white man, he, his, and I am extremely grateful for all of your contributions to combat heteronormativity and gender binarism. You have advanced LGBTQ rights for me, my soon-to-be husband, my gay millennial friends, and the queer young people who have come after me. All I can say is thank you for lending your voices to this effort. It's so important that your sacrifices and experiences are remembered for future generations. What a comment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, and you're getting some other thank yous. Another question we have here is, what comes to mind when you hear people say, especially healthcare providers, that they're interested in knowing what matters to you or understanding what matters to you? So for example, if you go into a healthcare appointment and your provider says, I'm interested in learning what matters to you, what would you say?
I never thought about that, but I will now.
I don't want anything that any other 78-year-old would want. I would want somebody that's worried about my whole past life and my future challenges. It had nothing to do with being gay or straight. It's just treat me like your mother.
Yeah, I would say that I expect a fair and equitable treatment, and I would be looking for someone who's able to, deal with mind, body, and soul. Those all can't be, probably dealt with, but some degree of care for those parts of each of us.
Would that come under the term culturally competent care?
Yes. Yeah.
It has nothing to do with sex or gender. It's just give me the best shot.
Yeah. Ask questions. I'm a firm believer. Like I said, I want to ask questions, but I also want my doctor to ask me questions, and to be willing to, as David just said, mind, body, and soul. I want the medical aspect, but I need you to be human too.
Yeah.
I need you to be human. Like I said, just remembering my doctor and throughout all the years of things that have occurred with me, because I live a life of sobriety myself, and my doctor knows my sobriety dates better than I do, because he understands that's part of who I am today. So it's not, he doesn't know the date, but he knows the season. He'd be like, yeah, it's about that time again. That's just something about me. And so get to know the person. I mean, we can't know all of our patients, but just don't treat us like cattle. And then, like Stephanie just said, that's just not for LGBTQ. That's anybody.
I think on a human level, something I've learned is that everyone has the need to be heard. Don't just fill out a form, shove a piece of paper. If you're listening, hear what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. I don't know your job. So I need you to hear me so that you can do your job.
But we have a responsibility to speak out too.
Exactly.
State what we need.
Make a list.
Yeah, I mean, post-COVID, I think 1 out of every 8 ads was a medical ad. And this is the advertising people telling me what medicine I need to tell my doctor to tell me I need the medicine. That just goes from right into the pocket, okay? Flush it down the toilet. I'm sorry, excuse me. But the medical system is running the wrong way.
Yeah.
Why does my guy on Madison Avenue know more about my erectile dysfunction than anything? Sorry.
Thank you all. I'd like to, yes, please.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to inject something that I think I wanted to mention it last time, but in dealing with healthcare organizations and physicians and their staff and social care agencies, what I would like is I would like to go in and deal with someone I include all of us in this, like someone who's like my age, or, you know, I don't know. Yeah, someone, you know, everyone does not have to be 22 years old. You know, I don't mean that to be an ageist statement, but I went to an event sponsored by the city of Chicago a couple years ago now, before COVID, and it was on senior care and ageism. And the presenters, superb, you know, they're in their early 20s, and maybe it's just me, but you know, age does bring some wisdom.
A couple years ago, Harvard Medical School, their graduating class of doctors, a bunch of them came back to the college and said, you've given us 8 hours in whatever, how many years about the LGBT community. You have taught us nothing other than how to take their temperature and a few things. And I believe that Harvard Medical now is in the process of demanding that 20% of the curriculum be applied to our needs, medical, health, everything. Now, how that's coming, I don't know, but it's the younger doctors are demanding this because they're seeing us, but they don't even know how to address me.
Right.
So if we can move that way, we'll all be better off for it.
And I know, real quick, David hit a key point that we actually really do need to use the talent that we have in our senior community. When there is an event, or when we're talking about the LGBTQ seniors, we're talking about seniors in general. Yes, someone in their 20s and 30s are quite knowledgeable, but experience trumps knowledge any time, any day. And there are people who are here who are able to give out that knowledge. Not, again, like David said, not knocking anyone who may be younger, because the younger people do have a lot of the good education, but use some of the other talent that we have also. They're like, and we see people on this panel that we're using people, you know, ask the experience of the people that we have, and you could get a better turnout.
Thank you. That's such an important point about representation, especially when we're learning about topics about people who are historically excluded. When we're learning about that, we should have better representation to actually learn from experiences. So thank you. I'd like to also use this time for people who've joined in on Zoom. If you have a question for our participants, you're welcome to unmute yourself and ask now. And we have a few others as well. Anyone on Zoom, any questions? All right, and so as people are thinking, we have a question. How has coming out affected your family or friend relationships?
I've done a few articles on and things on that. My roommate and I have a house sharing program, and she's straight, cis. And when I first came out, I thought my family liked me. Over the past 6 years, they've just stopped addressing me. And that's not a great feeling. But she and I, my roommate and I, did a BBC thing on chosen family and birth family. And my chosen family and my birth family is gone. But I have legions of friends in the cis community and the gay community that love me for who I am. So I'm a winner again.
Well, so I came out at 19 to my family, my brothers, sisters, mom, and dad. I'm the eldest of 5. So my brothers and sisters, were very, they were like, oh, okay, that's great, whatever. My mom was pretty good about it, she's a devout Roman Catholic woman back then. And, but, she was accepting. My dad had a problem with it. He wasn't hostile. I wouldn't say he was like hostile or angry. I don't know. He was really uncomfortable with it. And then the people, my two sisters talked to my dad and, kind of turned him around because, they met guys that I was dating and stuff. So I'm very grateful for that, looking back on that in like the late 70s. Oh my gosh. I'm very grateful for that for my family. I feel extremely lucky.
Well, I guess I'll real quick. My family, I guess will say they always knew. You never know. My mom probably always knew, but the official coming out, I guess, was in my mid-20s. I had been out for years, but as far as coming out with my family, I came out to my family when I was in a relationship that I was head over heels, and I wanted to make a statement to them, and especially to my mom, who had, at that time, had 10 grandchildren, and I was in my 20s, so she was looking forward to having more. And I said, you have 10, you will not have 11. So at that point, they pretty much knew. My family's always been basically accepting, but then there was always some ones who weren't. And I had to live with that. And being a person who also lived in the religious Christian faith, I had to keep my stuff under wraps. So it took me until I got into my mid-40s, maybe early 50s, to be okay with myself, to stand in my own truth. So today I'm good. But I would tell anyone today to stand in your truth, not admitting and not being who you are is defeating the purpose of you living. I lost a lot of life of living because I hid from certain people, but my family, my immediate family, they loved their uncle, so they were good.
I think, let's see, I came out in the 80s, mid 80s in Texas, but my parents had thrown me out of the house because I didn't want to be Catholic. And they said, if you don't want to be Catholic, you can't live here. And I'm like, I'm like, well, hallelujah, let me out. Yeah. So
no more CCD, right?
Yeah. And so I was 17 and I moved in with a gay man in an apartment complex in Cedar Springs, which is the gay neighborhood of Dallas. And my mother was on the phone and she said, you have to be careful swimming in that pool so you don't catch AIDS. And I'm like, Mom, you know I'm gay. And that's not how you catch it. And there was like this pause. And she said, well, I love you anyway. And I'm like, oh, please, if you loved me, I would be living at home. So, let's just, I came out to spite her, but I never looked back. And I remember like when walking down the street one night in Cedar Springs and a car drove by and a beer bottle went flying out of the window and it hit me in the back. Happened to not hurt because it hit just right. But I was pissed and I ran after the car cursing, and my friends were like, no, because they could stop. But I guess what I would say is like, it's your journey. And I was lucky enough, there was a play called Torch Song Trilogy. And Harvey Fierstein said, I had a confrontation with his mother. It was basically like, I don't ask for your acceptance. I don't ask for your, whatever. All I ask is that you respect who I am. And I'm like, that's all I've ever asked for. You don't have to accept me. You don't have to embrace me. just, I'm going to give you respect. You respect who I am, and let's keep it moving. We don't have to go into this like tearing each other down. So.
I'm just thinking about what you all are sharing, and it's just, and I know there's a lot of diversity in folks' experiences, but just thinking back through my family and the different generations and the different experiences we've all had, because the queer gene runs very strong in my family, especially on my dad's side of the family. And just knowing I have a great uncle right now that's 90 years old, is still very, very closeted and is not out to anyone. And just I know what his experience is. I know for myself, in the early 90s, as a older teenager, and my cousin is a year older than me, and our experience coming out, and some of the challenges we experienced. And then kind of fast forward to my nephew Walter, who is just turned 7, and at 3 years old went to my brother and was talking to my brother about gender, and was questioning his gender, and just watching my brother and my sister-in-law and how they're raising Walter, and how he's really allowed to explore that and talk about it and ask questions. And it's just, just at least within my own family, just being able to see those changes in such a positive way, of folks being able to live their true selves as younger. I think it's just pretty amazing. But we have just a few minutes left. So I did just want to give people an opportunity. One, I just wanted to say thank you to all 4 of you, for being open and vulnerable, and sharing your stories and your experiences. I think it is so tremendously powerful. But just wanted to give everybody a moment or two, if there was any final thoughts you had, or anything that you wanted to make sure that you were able to share with the group today.
Yeah, I just want to thank the gay community. I like your cousin or whatever, I knew from age 3. By the time I was 14, I was the second Catholic, or second son. By the time I was 14, every male in my family died. So I'm the youngest male at 14, knowing I'm a female. And then it just went blank. When I met my wife, and I'm trying to be straight, and we fell in love, I was a good salesman, closed it, and we were married in 10 months. Just before the key is, when do you tell your spouse? If you tell them before you're married, you will never get married. If you tell them after you're married, they'll probably hate you for the rest of your life. My wife stayed with me. I told her after, I got the best part of the trade. She stayed at my side for 44 years, but it was never discussed. And that's why, she died on a Friday, and I was in a support group on Saturday. And I haven't stopped running since. So, but it's lonely out there, but this community has been, Howard Brown and Center and Halstead have just been so acceptable to me. I walked into on Friday night drop in, and there were a whole bunch of trans girls there, and they got up for me, and it was packed. They got up for me and gave me a seat. And that's the acceptance I've had. So.
We're older, longer, hopefully, than we're young. And the things that were important to me when I was young are no longer important to me today. I value my friendships. I value my family. It's taken a long time and many years, and a lot of patience, and a lot of letting them also be who they are. One of my favorite sayings is, stop going to a hardware store looking for a loaf of bread. And so I let my family be who they are, but go about my business, because I think we're only given one life in this body. And so why waste it on other people's, taking on other people's value judgments. Like, leave those with them. Like, you can call me anything you want, but I'm going to keep it moving because you're just on the periphery of my life.
I wanted to thank you for letting us share our lives with everyone. And thank you to everyone who is attending or has attended. And, you know, we're all in this together, and that will be forever. I think that's going to be a really long time. Yeah, you know, we just have to stick together, and we have to stand up for what is right.
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank Jasmine, thank Kelly, thank everyone who attended, thank everyone for being here. Thank the fellow panelists. I really thank you for coming, sharing. There was a point in time when I didn't think I would be here. So Mark said something a moment ago. I wear my gray not as a badge of honor, but because I can. Because there was once upon a time when I never thought I would be gray, because I didn't think I would be here to be gray. Living through this life has given me a lot of great experiences, which today I don't have to ask permission to do. I'm grateful for Howard Brown for doing the services that they do. I'm also grateful for Howard Brown for expanding. One of the things that I actually also work with is actually expanding the services that we have across the board to everyone. And if anything, I would love to see that the services that we get in one area, we get in all areas. And we're working on doing that. And I want to actually be a part of doing that. And not just from Howard Brown's standpoint, but from anyone's standpoint. A lot of our seniors, a lot of people in general, especially people of LGBTQ of color, are living in closeted situations or are living in unaffirming situations. And today, if nothing else, I'm appreciable to be on a panel of 3 other individuals who are standing here being who they are, standing in our own truth, standing in our own identity, standing being okay with who we are. And just to show them and just to give other people the okay that you can do this. And for our younger people, stand in your truth. And if you don't have to, they say you don't have to imitate. You can be an original, you know. So, thank you again, Kelly. Thank you, Jasmine. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Jasmine, I just want to thank you for learning this technology. I mean, I recently learned how to use the phone. And you've taken this a few more steps out. All at the same time. You can walk, talk, and chew gum.
Thank you all. You've all been so great, and I appreciate you being so candid and open about your stories and your perspectives. I know I learned a lot, and I'll be looking at things differently moving forward. Stephanie, I especially loved what you said about pronouns and why we say pronouns to show where we're going. I never thought about it in that way before. So just thank you all. You've all given me, and I'm sure the people listening, you know, a different perspective and something that we'll keep in mind. So I'm going to offer just the last few seconds in case there's anyone else who had any comments or questions. And then after that, I'm going to share an opportunity of how you can share your perspective with others by recording a video. So anyone else on the call, if you had any questions or any last comments, you're welcome to unmute yourself now. All right, so I think it's safe to wrap up. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen real quick. There we go. All right. So we would love to take this time to learn also from our panelists. And I know a few of you have mentioned that you're going to record a video, so thank you so much for doing that. And also for those of you who are listening right now or later on. we'd love, and by Shaman, by we, I mean Schaalman Senior Voices and the team, would love to hear from you and learn about your perspectives. If you have any reflections from this event today, if you want to share what matters most to you and what that means to you, we would love to hear it. And so the way that we collect this and we learn from your perspectives is through the use of videos. So these are 60 to 90-second videos. And we find that videos are really great because instead of just taking notes or trying to jot down what matters most and your different perspectives and stories, you can learn a lot by seeing your face and hearing your voice and getting to know your tone. So video is just very valuable. And so if you're interested in recording a video, sharing your perspectives, you can visit either this link right here, which is bit.ly/recordmystory. That's a capital R, capital M, and capital S. So again, bit.ly/recordmystory. That'll take you to our Schaalman Senior Voices website where you can watch other videos of individuals in the community who have recorded a video already. It'll also take you to the interface where you can record your own video. So you'll just click record now, there will be a countdown. It's very user-friendly and it'll guide you through the process. You can also try, if you have a smartphone, you can point your camera at this little square over here. It's called a QR code. So as soon as you point it over there, it'll pop up on your phone and you can click that and visit the website that way. So I'm going to go ahead and keep this up for a few minutes for anyone who may want to try it using their smartphone or just want to remember where the link is. Again, this is an opportunity for you to share your perspectives and your reflections with the Schaalman Senior Voices team that we can then use to educate our healthcare students, have conversations like this, and also learn what matters so we can better develop programs and services and bridge those gaps. So I'm going to go ahead and leave this up for the remainder. And I want to thank again our panelists for sharing your stories and sharing your perspectives for these questions. And thank you all so much for your participation as well.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Nice meeting you all.
Thank each and every one of you. I really appreciate being on here with you again.
It was an honor.
You around town, guys.
Take care.